We looked at the first classification of models as linear versus nonlinear. Another classification of models that is possible is whether the model represents steady state or dynamic operations. So the models can be either steady state models or dynamic models. And as the name suggests, dynamic models are models of systems when things change with time. When things do not change with time, those kinds of models are referred to as steady state models. When variables in the system, like height of liquid in this particular illustration that you see on the slide, or concentration of a certain species in a chemical reaction, those kinds of things, or the composition of a species in a particular tray in a distillation column, or in the reflux drum of a distillation column, when these things change with respect to time, those are called dynamic models if the model captures the change of variables with respect to time. If the model does not capture the behavior with respect to time, then it is referred to as steady state model. So dynamic means things change with time. Steady state means things don't change with time. As simple as that. So we will just illustrate it with a quick example. In general, right, for systems, and I'll talk about it later in future videos, generally we can write the rate of accumulation, let's say of water in this tank, equals the flow rate in minus the flow rate out. So let's say the flow rate in is in meter cube per second, right? And the flow rate out is certain meter cube per second. So the rate of accumulation of water within the tank, this rate of accumulation dimensional wise, it should also be meter cube per second, right? Otherwise it would not make sense. So the rate of accumulation of water in this vessel that you see there is equal to the rate of flow into the tank through this Q1 minus the flow rate out through this pipe that's there at the bottom, let's say. So basically we are trying to say the rate of accumulation is equal to Q1 minus Q2, and therefore this is in meter cube per second, this is in meter cube per second, so this should also be in meter cube per second. So basically we will write as the rate of change of volume of water in this tank equals the rate of flow in minus the rate of flow out. So in doing this, right, we are doing what is the material balance or a mass balance of water. Really what we are writing is the mass balance. That means we are saying the rate of change of mass of water in this tank equals the mass in minus the mass out, right? So this is the conservation of mass of water in the tank. But we all know that mass is nothing but volume times density. Therefore, I can write this as d by dt of the volume of water in the tank times the density of water equals the density of water multiplied by the volumetric flow rate of water into the tank minus the density of the water going out times the flow rate, volumetric flow rate of water going out. Now what you can do is you can say, well, I don't expect changes in the density of water, right, in the system. In all the streams and within the vessel, the density is the same. So we can say rho, the density of water inside the tank, is the same as the rho I, which is the density of water in the inlet stream, and it is also the same as the density of water in the outlet stream. So we are saying rho equals rho I equals rho 0. So all the densities are the same, in which case the densities cancel out from all the terms, and then we are left with dV by dt is equal to Qi or Q1 minus Q2. So basically the mass balance, that is a principle that we call as conservation of mass, right? So mass is conserved, therefore this equation should make sense. And under the assumption that the densities are the same in all the three streams, right? The two streams, inlet stream and outlet stream, as well as inside the vessel, the three parts of this problem, the densities are the same, then we can divide throughout by density and write this balance like this. Now we also realize that the volume of water in the tank can be written as the area of the tank multiplied by height of water in the tank, right? We are assuming a tank with uniform cross-sectional area A. So A is the cross-sectional area of the tank, right? So when you look from the top, that area, right, that you see projected, that's the area A, cross-sectional area A. That multiplied by h, we know that's the volume of water in a cylindrical vessel, etc. So if you say V is equal to AH, then since A is constant, right, it doesn't change with the height, then you can pull out A and write dV as AdH. And therefore, we get this equation. dV by dt is equal to Q1 minus Q2 becomes AdH by dt, right? So because dV is AdH, so dV by dt will be Ad by dH by dt. So as simple as that. So the rate of change of volume in the vessel equals the inlet flow rate minus the outlet volumetric flow rate. And then this is what is called a constitutive relationship. So you say this Q2 is equal to K times H. This is like, an empirical relationship that you get from experimental data, right? So you understand if the height of water inside the vessel is a lot, then Q2, the flow out, will be a lot because of the hydrostatic head. So here we are assuming that the outflow Q2 is proportional to the height of water in the tank. If the water is more inside the tank, the outflow rate Q2 will be high. If H is 0, the outflow will be equal to 0, right? If there is no water in the tank, Q2 will be equal to 0. So we are making some assumptions here that the flow is, laminar, etc. Now Q is always, it's a flow variable, so it's like the current, right? So it's like the current. And then height is like the potential, right? It's potential, so that is like V, and then you can use this K. And you can also write this as V is equal to I by K, which you can write it as I times R. So this is the Ohm's law. This is the equivalent of Ohm's law. This is the analogy. This is not the volume. So please remember, when I'm writing V here, it's the voltage, right? So the height of water in the tank is like the driving force, right? That's the driving force. And because of that, there is a flow of water. So the current flow in a circuit, right, across a resistor, that is like the flow of current. So the water flow is like the current flow, and there it is created by the electropotential. Here it is due to the hydrostatic head. So the concept is the same. The driving forces and the variables are different. This variable 1 by K is like the resistance in an electrical circuit. So there is an analogy between electrical circuits and such systems, right? So in any case, what is important for us is this Q2 can be written as K times H, right? So that is from empirical observations. So when you do that, AdH by dt becomes Q1 minus K times H. And now what you can do is you can divide throughout by K, in which case you will get this equation. A by K dH by dt is equal to Q1 by K minus H. And then what you do is you could define this A by K as equivalent to tau, right? Because A by K, as if you think about it, A by K will have the units of time. So this A by K is a very important parameter that's called the time constant of the system. So that determines the speed of the response. So if tau, this symbol, is small, it means the system will react fast. If the time constant is big, then the system will be slow. So tau is small means it's a fast reacting system. If tau is big, it is a slow, sluggish kind of a system. All right. So basically, A by K is nothing but tau. So if you want to have small tau, right? If you want to have small tau, either have a large K. That means you must have very small resistance in the pipe. Remember, we said 1 by K is like the resistance to flow, current flow, right? 1 by K is also resistance to water flow here. So if you want this tau to be small, you must have K to be large. So if you want K to be large, then you must get this pipe, right? This pipe should have very smooth internals, something like that. Okay, so that is way you can manipulate tau. That's how you can design tau. Or you can have a low value of A, the cross-sectional area. That's also a way of handling tau. If you want tau to be small, either you can have small a or big K, right? Both will have the effect of resulting in a small value of tau. So tau is what is called the time constant. And that determines the speed of response of the system. So small tau means quick response, implies quick response to changes in the system, right? So one of the things that you want to do is to reduce the time constant of systems, right? If you want the systems to react fast. So now what you see here is, with all these assumptions and simplifications, you get this equation. This is what you would call as a first order linear ODE. First order linear ordinary differential equation. ODE means ordinary differential equation. So why we call this as ordinary differential equation means because there is only one independent variable in the system, which is time. If you have more than one independent variable, like something's changed with time as well as with position, then that would be called a PDE. You will have a partial differential equation, right, which we'll come to at some point later. But this is an ordinary differential equation because you have only one independent variable, which is time, and the dependent variable is height, because height is what changes with time. So basically this equation that you see there, this is a first order linear ordinary differential equation, right? Because you have the first derivative, therefore it is called first order, right? So first order ordinary differential equation, this tells us how the height of water in the tank changes with time. As you change the inflow rate to the system, how does the height respond with respect to time? So the Q1, right, changes with respect to time. So this is time, this is how Q1 changes. So Q1 changes like this with respect to time. In response to that, the height would also change with respect to time, right? So height may be this, and then the height will be like this. So this equation tells us how H will change with respect to time as Q changes with respect to time, as Q1 changes with respect to time. All right, so that is the idea behind this equation. So at any point of time, you will be able to find out the value of height, right? So that is the power of this differential equation. It will tell you exactly at every point in time how the height of the system, of liquid in the system, will change, right? So that is the idea. You can get the value of height at any point of time. And now what happens is you can take this equation and then find its steady state form. At steady state, by definition, nothing changes with respect to time. Therefore, dH by dt goes to 0, right? dH by dt is equal to 0 at steady state. So when you assume steady state, you are saying basically any variable does not change with respect to time. So therefore, what happens is this equation, right, that you have here, right, this equation I can write a dH by dt is 0. Therefore, I'm going to say 0 is equal to Q1S. The subscript S says we are assuming steady state. This S stands for steady state, minus KHS. And therefore, I can write HS as Q1S by K. So the steady state level of liquid in the tank, HS, equals the steady state volumetric flow rate of the inlet stream divided by this K. K is the characteristic of this pipe, right? The resistance offered by this pipe to the flow is 1 by K. So K is related to the design of this pipe, or how this pipe works. All right. And as I've said, we assumed laminar flow. Therefore, we write Q is equal to KH. If it is turbulent, we might have to write Q is equal to Q2 is equal to KH to the power of N, where N can take a value like 0.8 or some number like that. All right. So at steady state, you have this expression like I wrote. HS is equal to Q1S by K. So if you have this kind of, what has happened is, you start with the ODE, which is a dynamic model. So this represents the dynamic behavior of the tank system. Now you assume steady state, right? You assume steady state, and then at steady state, your equation of the system reduces to this form. HS is equal to Q1S divided by K. So in dynamic state, the system is described by an ODE. In steady state, when you assume dH by dt is equal to 0, the equation becomes like this. It becomes algebraic. So that is what happens when you assume steady state. In this particular case, in the dynamic state, the system behavior is described by that ordinary differential equation. In steady state, the model simplifies to an algebraic equation. So this is what happens when you can assume steady state, right? So the models are quite simplified when you work with steady state. But the problem is, yes, the model is simple when you're talking about steady state, but then you will only get the value of h at the final value, right? At the final value of time. You will not be able to draw this trajectory if you have a steady state model. The steady state model will give you only the steady state value of h. What happens? Let's say k is equal to 2 in appropriate units. So h as the steady state value is q1s divided by 2, right? I'm assuming k is equal to 2 because let's say I know the characteristics of the pipe, etc. So k is equal to 2. So hs is q1s by 2. So what this equation tells us is if the inlet flow is steady at 5, hs will be equal to 5 by 2, which is 2.5. If the inlet flow is steady at 7, q1s is equal to 7, then the height of liquid in the tank will be at steady state, it will be 3.5, that is 7 by 2. So it will only tell you what is the steady state height when the inflow rate is steady at a certain value. So it will only give that. This equation cannot tell us what happens when Q1 suddenly changes from 5 to 7. How does the system move from a certain liquid level to another liquid level? That the algebraic model will not be able to say. The ODE, the dynamic model, will be able to tell us the initial value. It will also be able to say how the system reaches to its final height when Q1 increases from one value to the other. So the information that you get from a steady state model will be limited to this point and to this point. The information you get from the dynamic model will include those 2 points as well as the trajectory that the system takes in order to go from one state to another. So what I want you to get out of this presentation is that you can choose to do what are called dynamic material, dynamic energy balances, for example, right? So you can do that. Usually in many systems you will get ordinary differential equations or partial differential equations depending on the assumption that you make, the characteristic of the system, etc. All right, so variables will change with respect to time for sure in a dynamic model. In a steady state model, you will have more simplified representations. For example, if you take the dynamic model to be a partial differential equation, at steady state, it will become a ordinary differential equation. If your dynamic model was an ordinary differential equation, then your steady state model will be an algebraic equation. So in any case, steady state models are simpler than the dynamic models. But the steady state model also gives you less information about the system. Okay, so this is the kind of trade-off. So I hope you understand how and why systems are classified as steady state versus dynamic models. Thank you.